spooky! Welcome to a Halloween special edition of BestowCast. Welcome to a special edition of BestowCast where we're going to look into Werewolf by Night. An extra episode this week for you guys. I hope you are super excited, and I hope that you all had time to watch the Disney Plus series Werewolf by Night. I know I'm kind of hitting hard on the review series or the overview series. I promise we'll get into collecting sometime, but I thought it would be nice to Disney hit us with a special edition. I'm going to hit you guys with a special edition, and we're going to look at Werewolf by Night. Of course, it is a comic book. It was a comic book first. Again, when I kind of talk about this stuff, I kind of try to compare it to my own personal collection. My own personal collection is I never had Werewolf by Night. I don't think I've ever owned a Werewolf by Night comic. I don't think I had anything that even crossed over with Werewolf by Night. I kind of believe, now this is just from my opinion, and I wasn't really into like horror kind of stuff. I wasn't really big into picking up Tomb of Dracula or any of those other books. I think maybe the closest I got was probably the Danny Ketch version of Ghost Rider, which would be, when I started collecting, he'd be the most prominent Ghost Rider at the time. And then later on down the line, I think via crossovers, I had like the Darkhold comic book series. And, eventually like Blade and Johnny Blaze came back, and then they reprinted the Johnny Blaze comic book. So I kind of had some of the reprints. But that's kind of how, as deep as it gets for my horror kind of collection when it comes to the Marvel Comics stuff. So I never really got into Werewolf by Night. And I don't even really know, I do have the Wikipedia page up here to kind of look over it. And it doesn't really... It appears that it was, it may never have been in print during the times that I was actually like collecting, because he was like, it looks like he was in Marvel Spotlight #2, which was in 1972, way before, he's before I was even born. And then it came, and then that was the Russell. So there's two versions. There's Jack Russell, and then there's Jake Gomez. And the Jake Gomez one came out in 2020, which was probably way after when I was done. About 2020, I wasn't collecting comics anymore. I think, I was reading like, Walking Dead and stuff, but I don't, 2020, I don't think I was even buying digital versions of Walking Dead or anything. I think I was out. I don't think I've bought a comic for probably the last 5 years, digital or otherwise. Shame on me for producing a comic book, a geek-based show that includes comic books and not owning comic books. I kind of have the feeling that this was kind of a thing that was in and out, of print, and it just was way off my radar. And kind of looking at these things, it looks like it might be like kind of the onset of like the Comics Code Authority, where they kind of had, this a character or a werewolf-like character or whatever was kind of put the kibosh by the seduction of the innocent kind of stuff, where they were they didn't want the feeble minds of children corrupted by werewolf speak. So a lot of this, anything that Marvel had to do with this kind of stuff may have been on the kibosh or in the download. I know at times like Marvel had produced magazines to kind of get around the Comic Code Authority. This isn't a comic book; it is a magazine, but it still had illustrations in it. I don't know if this actually went the zine route or not. That's basically the my know-how of the comic books. So it's going to be a horrible compare and contrast because I don't have much to compare it to. So let's get to the film. So this is kind of an interesting way that the MCU is kind of expanding, where there, again, I complain where it's like, where if it's a television series, they have 22 episodes, and then, you have to watch 22 episodes, whether they're filler or just kind of an episode that just exists or whatever. This is kind of in comparison to what would be in comics, like a one shot, where it's like, yeah, we just produce this one thing, or maybe an annual. And I guess it wouldn't be an annual because they would if it was an annual, there would have to be a series that exists with it. But I guess the comparison would be just a one shot, where it's just a singular story where you just read it and you move on. And if it's popular enough, maybe they'll do another one shot, or if it's super popular enough, they'll do a spin-off, or they'll actually make a series to it. So this is kind of presented not only as a kind of a one shot as far as like the MCU, or as far as the film terms, but it also is a throwback. It's a throwback to the horror movies, the old classic black and white Universal horror movies. It is edited in black and white, except for there's a few exceptions. It has the graininess applied to it. I've noticed that it has the cigar burns, the cigar or cigarette burns to denote that the reel's going to change in the top corner. It's the title treatment. It's marvelous. It's just wonderful that they presented it in this fashion. It's again, it's like you only have just this episode to kind of enjoy, and it's also it's like, I think it was like 45 minutes, I'll say an hour. We'll just say an hour. So you're only investing an hour of your time, and it's presented. It starts with a special presentation, so it's kind of like the Saturday night movies, when the Halloween comes around, and they do it's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, or the Garfield special, or anything. When they present the specials on the holiday, this is kind of has that presentation kind of thing, where it's like, here's our feature presentation, or here's our special presentation, which was kind of a nice little nod. And then it being retro, I don't even know if it's a retro at this point, being that it's disguised as being like something from the archive, is kind of a nice little treat as well. And then it also brings up the whole thing: is it canon? Is it continuity? Does it relate to the rest of the stuff? It's hard to say. I mean, there's the Blade movies, or the Blade movie is coming out soon. Will some of the stuff tie over from this? Will the Werewolf by Night series, is that a film version of something that actually happened in the Marvel universe, or is it fiction within the Marvel universe? That it's not really explicit, and there's not really anything out there that says otherwise. Another thing is that it breaks away from the MCU formula of having a post-credit scene. Even things on Disney Plus has a post-credit scene, and this breaks away from that. This is truly its own thing, which I totally respect. And we kind of get in there with our character, Jack Russell. What a horrible name. Which again pulls from the original character, whose name is Jack Russell, which, like I said earlier, he appeared in Marvel Spotlight #2 of February 1972, and a group of other hunters. So he's one of them, but we're introduced to a whole bunch of other hunters. I guess before I get into the other hunters, is that they provide you with a backstory of a monster hunter, or generations of monster hunters that hunt monsters. I mean, I guess that's implied in their name. And the most current one, or whatever one of the time, I'm going to say like of the 1950s, I'm assuming, would be Ulysses Bloodstone. And one of the tools that he uses, or they use, is this MacGuffin called the Bloodstone. And Ulysses has died off camera right before the episode starts, and that the hunters are there to inherit. One of them is going to be picked to inherit the Bloodstone. The Bloodstone is just described as something that just aids in the hunt. Verussa, I believe is her name, the widow of Ulysses, describes it as like it makes the monster weaker but angrier. So it's angrier, so it makes it tougher to kill, but it's weaker than it would be. So it's not at its full strength. So again, we're introduced to a bunch of other hunters. Forgive me, I do have to bring it up. I do not know the relations to the comic books or if they are related to anybody in the comics. But we have Jovan, we have Azrael, we have Liam, and we have Barroso, and Billy Swan as the Bloodstone Servant. Okay. So we have these guys that are all there, and plus, we have Jack Russell, and we have Elsa Bloodstone, who is the estranged daughter of Ulysses. She doesn't really share in their ideal of hunting, and she would normally inherit the Bloodstone, but because she's kind of forsaken the family, she's brought down to be one of the hunters as the rest, just the same as the rest of them. So the idea is that they're all going to they're all going to enter in drawing, and the lucky one who gets the lucky rune stone gets to go first, and go for the hunt, and he gets like a 5-second leeway before everything else, and it's a free for all. So it's the hunters are going after the monster. But the hunters are also going after each other as well, so that they can be, because there can be only one. We're watching the Highlander by Night series. So fortunately or unfortunately, Jack Russell's our number one pull. He gets to go after the monster itself, and I haven't even described what the monster is. This was they showed the monster in the trailer. And when I saw the monster, again, I'm not really super familiar with the Marvel dark universe, as you could probably call it, is that they show Man-Thing. The giant-sized Man-Thing appears. A giant-sized Man-Thing is now canon in the MCU. Yeah, they're hunting the giant-sized Man-Thing, and Jack is actually kind of the first to kind of come across him, and we learn that Jack and Man-Thing, God, what a horrible name. And then the fact that it was that the book that it was in was giant-sized. It was a giant-sized Man-Thing. Jack and Man-Thing were former buddies, and Jack is actually there to bust Man-Thing out. He's there to free him. He's not there to kill him. So he has to find a way of not only getting him out, but also getting the Bloodstone off of him because it's implanted in his back. Man-Thing, again, another creature that I don't really have much knowledge about. My knowledge of Man-Thing, or how I was familiar with Man-Thing, was that it's either one way or the other. It's either Marvel's rip-off version of Swamp Thing, or Swamp Thing's version. Swamp Thing was a ripoff of Man-Thing. I don't know which came first, was Man-Thing or Swamp Thing. And I mean, aside from looks, they look similar. Their power sets are way different. And, I know Marvel and DC ripped each other off quite frequently whenever they were creating stuff, and usually like power sets were very similar. Man-Thing's power sets are way not similar to Swamp Thing. And that sounds like a good spot to take a couple seconds and use the bathroom and take a good stretcher, and we'll be right back with more Werewolf by Night. Welcome back to our special edition of BestowCast, our Halloween edition of Werewolf by Night. Another overview. I don't really want to say a review. I don't know if I'm really reviewing it. Does my opinion really count in the overall scope of it all? I hope not. I hope that you watch it and you enjoy it for you, or not like it, or you make your own opinions. I'm hoping my opinion doesn't inform your opinion in the slightest. Enjoy your thing the way you want to enjoy it. With that being said, right before we went on break, I was pondering whether Man Thing came first or Swamp Thing came first, and I tripped over an article from Polygon.com where the question is asked: Is Man Thing a copy of Swamp Thing? And their answer is, and again, this is from Polygon. The answer is yes. At the time, that writer Len Wein was coming up with Swamp Thing. His roommate Jerry Conway had put Man Thing on the cover of cover on the page over a year previously. No accusations of plagiarism was ever made, though they have a shared look and origin. The two characters diverged pretty. I'm gonna get tongue tied on that. They diverge. Their origins are, even though they have a shared origin stuff, their power sets and everything kind of diverge. So that it kind of answers the question. That actually answers the question much deeper than I ever thought it was. Usually when it comes to like Marvel DC stuff, it's just like, this thing exists for like X amount of time, and then all of a sudden it's a version of that's over there, based off of, I don't know, popularity. If this character was popular, all of a sudden like Marvel will make their own version and write off the popularity and vice versa. It sounds like this one was they were kind of created at the same time, and the people that created each character were roommates, which is that's actually kind of that's a neat idea. But back over into the film, the series, or I don't want to say series, but the special, the movie of the week. Jack Russell and Elsa have kind of made a pact. They're kind of working together. He basically comes front with her where he's just trying to free the beast. And that's he doesn't even want to have anything to do with the Bloodstone, and it's kind of assumed. I don't know if it's explicitly said, but like she just wants to, get her inheritance, the Bloodstone. But I don't think she has any intent of being a hunter or killing any more creatures. So she just kind of wants the Bloodstone to kind of retire it or hide it or whatever. So they kind of have a pact together to work together, and so it's them against the hunters basically, and Elsa takes out she disarms one of the hunters and basically takes out another one of the hunters during the time. And when Jack is fleeing from his own pursuers, he ends up in a vault and ends up accidentally locking himself in the vault with Elsa. So they're in the Bloodstone vault, and that's basically where they come up with their pact, where they both have their own agendas, and it's not to murder helpless creatures, which kind of puts an interesting spin on how on this series where. That we have like humans, we have perceived humans, because we don't, even at this point, we don't even know that Jack is a werewolf, but we have perceived humans that are, they are on, I don't want to say on the side, but they don't want to murder or kill monsters. They have their own kind of agenda. But they do manage to get out. They do manage to save a giant-sized man thing, and Elsa she acquires this grappling hook of which she gets the Bloodstone, and pulls it off the back of the giant-sized man thing. And when Jack goes to pick it up or touches it, he's in pain. He's in quite some pain because of it. And that is revealed because he is a monster, and a monster cannot touch the Bloodstone. Little side trick here. I was saying in the beginning where it's like, the show is in black and white except for specific times. And whenever the Bloodstone is shown, that is the specific time when it's not in black and white. Everything is in black and white except for the Bloodstone, which is red. And it reflects into the lens. It creates lens flares and everything. So that specifically is a piece that's in color, whereas the rest of the film is in black and white. So skip ahead a little bit. Elsa is locked in the cage with Jack, the mother of Verusa. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I may have said it differently in part one. Is seeking to punish both of them. She's going to turn Jack into his beastly form, and she's going to have him destroy Elsa. So she uses the bloodstone to change Jack into the werewolf by night, and we finally get to see it. We see the werewolf, and I believe I read somewhere where most all the effects were practical. They tried to not do too many CGI. Man Thing does appear to be CGI, but I don't know how much of that is CGI and how much of that's physical. I mean, some of it might be physical, and they just CGI the tentacles or like his special powers and stuff. I guess another moment too is when is the Man Thing's eyes are a different color. So again, when it's black and white, his eyes stick out because I believe his eyes are yellow. Are they yellow or red? I think they're yellow. And I think when Jack turns into the werewolf, I believe his eyes pop too. He's got a color treatment to his to him to make him pop. He manages to get out of the cage and fight fight the villains. She manages to get out and she fights the other hunters. I think she pretty much eliminates all the hunters. Then we get to the confrontation between her and him, and he seems to remember her. He doesn't attack her. So she manages to let him free. Verusa, again, spoilers. We're deep into spoiler country by now, but Verusa punishes Elsa for her betrayal and is about to kill her, and that's when our giant-sized Man Thing lays down his Man Thing and destroys Verusa and saves the day. And then we pretty much have an end mark here where Elsa is just kind of sitting back. What was his name again? Let me hold on. Billy Swan. Yeah, Billy Swan, the servant, asks her what they should do with the, now she's the heir and stuff. And she tells them to pack it all up, and she sits there with the moonstone, and we start hearing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and all of a sudden our black and white becomes more of 70s-ish era color palette. And then we kind of follow up with Man Thing and Jack Russell, and we kind of see how they end. And they're also in this 70ish, the 1970s era, maybe 1960s era kind of color palette to end the film, where Jack Russell and Man Thing live off to see another day. And it's kind of an interesting spin where because generally when you watch like your monster movies, or especially your classic monster movies, the monsters are the bad guys, and the monsters are not the bad guys in this series. They're the good guys. They have no ill will. They don't mean to be bad. They don't mean to maim and kill. They do try to do good. They just, their power sets don't allow it. And the villains are actually like the hunters. They're the humans. They're Verusa. So we've got the spin where the humans are the bad guys, except for Elsa, and the monsters are the good guys. So where do we go from here? Well, it's considered a one-off, but it's kind of one of those things where they set it out there, and if it does good, if enough people like it, there is the possibility that maybe they'll do more sequels. Again, I had looked up and tried to see if it's considered in continuity. It is considered, it just says as a part of Phase 4. I mean, this is the Wikipedia. Werewolf by Night was released October 7th, 2022 as a part of Phase 4 of the MCU. So it just says it's a part of Phase 4. If it's a part of Phase 4, does that mean that it ties into the rest? I would assume it would have some sort of bearing. Again, where we have Blade coming out, and here's another example where Blade's a vampire, and he should be a bad guy because we don't like vampires, but he's a good guy fighting against the other monsters who are they want a new world or order or whatnot. So there could be tie-ins. Jack Russell could cross over at some point. Jake Gomez, who's the more current Werewolf by Night. Maybe there's another series that it is. or it's just, that this is a film franchise. I mean, we've kind of seen that with Eternals, where we have like an actor who's portraying a lot of like the MCU stuff in universe. And we see that also in Hawkeye, where we see like the Avengers musical. So there are iterations of things that exist that are, maybe telling the story of something that's larger than something that exists in that universe, but down to like a musical or a theatrical performance or whatever. So this could be just this could be just entertainment within the MCU, or this could be something larger. I'm gonna bet that it's gonna be something larger. Just considering that I have a feeling that Marvel wants to tap into their monster universe. Since what was it, Paramount didn't really do too well with their dark universe, maybe Marvel can spin their own dark universe. I think they want to tap into as many facets as they want, as they can get into. They can get into their superheroes, and then we can get into their monsters and so on and so forth. And then we've kind of already seen that. We dipped a little bit with Darkhold, like I mentioned. I used to own the Darkhold comics. Darkhold was there. We see that in the Multiverse of Madness. I mean, that's another thing. This could also be a multiverse kind of idea too. This could be a something that's exists in this is like a film that's a part of the 616, but in another universe this was reality, or vice versa. I mean, there's that possibility. What did I think about this? I enjoyed it. I was glad that it was a one-off. I was glad that I didn't have to commit to another 9 episodes and or 22 episodes, or had to rack my brain where it's like, okay, well now I have to watch all the Avengers films plus the one Doctor Strange film to understand how it works. I like that it works on its own without having to rely on the rest of the MCU. I mean, that's kind of a thing that's starting to wear thin on me, where it's like that's a huge commitment. Whether or not it's going to stay that way, I don't know. I mean, I kind of would like to see it stay that way, or if there are references in like say Blade, it's maybe winks and nods. Was it kind of the best thing? I mean, it's hard to say because it was done in the retro style. So I like presentation wise, I kind of liked the fact that it was done in those old like Universal. Oh, sorry, I said Paramount Dark Universe. I meant Universal Dark Universe. I don't know if I would like to see. I mean, I'd like to see maybe sequels to this film, or it kind of exists in its own bubble. With maybe references to it in some other facets. Maybe the Bloodstone will show up again. But I don't know. It being its own thing, I kind of liked it. It being kind of a retro, they had the guts. A lot of times they want to present something in black and white, and then the studios are like, nah, we can't do this in black and white. And you kind of see that with Rob Zombie's The Munsters, where I believe that was kind of one of the points that they wanted, was that they wanted it to be in black and white. And I believe if you strip the color off of your TV, if you have the ability to, the Munsters are, you can see that it was kind of lit in a way to benefit the black and white. And it's kind of cool to see that they kept this black and white, that they didn't force them into making it in color. I'm kind of curious that if they do make sequels to this, will they encapsulate different eras? Like since the end of it was like the 60s or 70s era, we had a little bit more Technicolor towards the end. Will the next one be in Technicolor? Will they do another one that will be in the style of like maybe the Hammer films, where it's like paint for blood and like the colors. When I think of a Hammer film, I always think of like how the colors like super lit, like they're. I don't know. They seem to pop more. They're I believe like they're overlit or whatever. But overall I think it was great. If you have Disney Plus, totally check it out. And that ends our special edition, our Halloween edition. You got two podcasts in the same week. Don't get spoiled by that, because I'm sure next week we'll be back to talking about toys or some other sort of rot. That is it for tonight, and have a wonderful weekend or whatever. Weekday. Just have fun.